to get this closer. Excuse me. Need a drink of soda too. Give me 1 sec. I'm in such a hurry. This is an unscheduled stream. I'm on my way to a 50th anniversary. And look at him. I'm all buttoned up here. I need to be wow. Okay. Uh, I'm on my way to a 50th anniversary celebration for the National Libertarian Party. I'm going to need to get up on the Zoom room, so I'm not going to be able to talk for long, but I wanted to do this since this just happened. And I've got a couple viewers I see. Hopefully, we'll have a few more jump on. Remember, this is always participatory. I would love to hear from you in chat. So, what happened today? I was quite surprised and disappointed. But first, let me get right out in the open. It's always possible for any of us, particularly when we're very emotionally invested in a situation, as I most certainly am, to misinterpret things. To also, written text can be a very poor communicator of tone and intent. So let me just get that right out front. But also, when someone is in a ticklish situation, you should take a lot of care in how you are presenting information. So now that I gave all of the appropriate disclaimers as to fairness, bias, and all of that, let's get into what has made me go, things that go, that was a bit catty. That was a bit disappointing. So what am I talking about? I am talking about a post on the LNC list today from the individual who filled the fraudulent vacancy and should feel bad about it, should feel absolutely rotten about it. As I said multiple times, I do not dislike this gentleman, but I do think he behaved in an absolutely unprincipled manner in filling a fraudulent vacancy. That was a witch hunt. But that being said, so this gentleman decides to take a shot at me on the LNC list today. Now, other people are telling me you're reading that wrong. He didn't take a shot at you. I could be wrong. Maybe he didn't. It certainly appears that way to me and others. So at best, he didn't really think about what he was saying. And at worst, he took a shot at me. And I believe he did. And I also believed it revealed a fundamental philosophical difference between myself and most of this current LNC. And that is, who is the priority? Is it the membership or is it the LNC? Is it the rules for the sake of rules or is it the membership? I have always prioritized the membership and I always will prioritize the membership. So when it comes to minutes, in a political organization, particularly the LP, what is the purpose of the minutes? Well, you have your basic purpose, which is to record the decisions made, the bare bones requirements of Roberts. I do not agree with the bare bones requirements of Roberts. So I moved about a year and a half ago to amend our policy manual to add additional information that needs to be included in the minutes. Now, some people who have criticized my minutes don't realize that we have special rules of order that were passed by the LNC that dictate additional information to go in our minutes. This is somewhat tangential to what I'm getting at today. Such as, and this is more educational, such as Roberts says only the main motion as amended with those votes gets recorded. When you're dealing with a transparent, accountable board, that is not enough because the way a main motion may end may not be anything like how it began. And how would you like it if you moved a certain main motion worded in a way that was acceptable to you? It got amended 10 ways till Sunday. Your name's still attached to it as the person moving it, even though it looks nothing like the way you originally moved it, and you're in the minutes as having moved that. No, all of the substantive amendments should be recorded in a political organization so that members this is for the members, can see the evolution of the motion and see who changed it. Now, our special rules of order require all substantive amendments to be included in the minutes. Roberts doesn't require that. Our special rules of order require that. And I think I'll read exactly the extra requirements in our special rules of order. So that's more education for everyone who goes, oh, she included more than is required. Yes, because our special rules of order require it. Maybe you should, learn that kind of stuff before criticizing other people. However, I'm going to read you an email on the list here where I believe a shot was taken at me, and shame on you, and state my fundamental disagreement. But first, I would like to let you know what our special rules of order say. And I actually encourage any political organization, particularly any libertarian political organization, to adopt similar special rules of order, because the bare bones minutes that is required by Roberts, I think are really, I don't think they give members nearly enough information to be able to judge the performance of board members. So I'm pulling up our policy manual for the section for minutes. One second, I'm doing a word search for minutes. Meeting minutes. Okay, so you can find this in the LNC policy manual under section 1.02, which is entitled minutes, meetings, subsection 6, which is entitled minutes. And it reads, in addition to the requirements articulated by RONR, the meeting minutes shall include the following. Any disclosure of a conflict of interest by an LNC member shall be noted in the minutes of the subsequent LNC meeting or in an attached report thereto, citing the individual and pertinent details needed to identify the conflict of interest. Next thing, copies of reports submitted for review as appendices. Then, the following aspects of each mail ballot conducted since the prior meeting reported by the secretary at that meeting, including the complete text of the motion, the names of the co-sponsors, the dates of the initiation and completion of the balloting, and the role of those voting on the motion. This requirement may be satisfied by including this information in the secretary's report appended to the minutes. Next, complete text of all motions made with notations of any vote counts for rising votes or votes by show of hands announced by the chair. One second here. There's another section in here that I am trying to locate. Give me one sec. Funny, I think there's something missing in here. One second. Interesting. I need to go back to the history here because I think something got accidentally omitted in a draft here. One second here. I'm going to need to research that. Interesting. Well, in any event, that is something I am going to need to research because I do know that we passed that about the substantive amendments. I'm going to need to go through some history here because it looks like something might not have gotten included in the policy manual. That will be an interesting research project. So we do include more in our minutes than is required. Now, that is not what this gentleman's complaining about, amendments or anything of that sort. But what he did state is this. Give me one second. Right here. So he had said, under attendance, it says, the gallery contained many attendees, as noted in the attendance roster attached hereto as Exhibit A, comprising attendees who signed the attendance book circulated by the secretary. And he said, did anyone pass a roster this meeting? Well, sir, it says it's circulated by the secretary. The secretary was there. I was there because I'm the secretary. But I no longer have authority to pass a roster book. So no, one roster was not passed. He says, I don't see anywhere in our policy where we have to indicate which non-members were present, however. And then he says, if it's available, he doesn't mind including it. But he said, I don't intend on continuing to take attendance of non-members moving forward unless the body orders it. I'm a firm believer that the minutes should be stripped down to only what is required in them, as extraneous items can become a liability to an organization. Any any Anything anyone wants to reference besides what is required in the minutes can be seen on the YouTube video. My reading of RONR 4826 also indicates that the minutes should contain only what is necessary and what is ordered by the assembly. It's funny that he doesn't note the policy manual, but that could be what he meant by what is ordered by the assembly. Okay. Now, you cannot look at the YouTube video and see all the guests. So that is patently incorrect. But the way I viewed that as a shot against me, it's because it's a practice that I had started to make sure that the non-members were noted. And he had said, basically was saying, well, she went beyond Roberts. Yes, I did. And I did go beyond our policy manual. Why? Because the minutes are for the members. And LNC meetings, we're going to go back to something. LNC meetings are all over the country, and members who actually care enough to take the time to come to the meeting deserve to have their presence noted. So he says extraneous items can become a liability. Is our concern only for the liability of the LNC, or is our concern for the memberships of this party? This has been the fundamental philosophical difference between myself and this LNC. And I was just reading comments there for a second. Is that I believed we existed to serve the LNC and not each other, not protect the LNC at all costs. But how in the world can noting which members were there, non-members of the LNC, but members of the party were there, be a liability to the LNC? Why wouldn't you want to note the members that actually cared enough to come to the meeting? And I'm super distracted because I really do think the policy manual, something got dropped along the way, or I could be mistaken. I could be remembering an amendment we never made, and I'll note that in a future video if I'm wrong on that, because I will admit where I'm wrong. I am positive we amended the policy manual to say substantive amendments should be included. Now, I would include it anyway for the reasons I told you, but I was almost positive that was in our policy manual. I'm going to need to double check that. I don't like when my memory glitches on me like that, but it's certainly possible. I'm not always right. Continuing with what I was saying, members that come to the meeting deserve to be recognized as being there. There's several reasons for that. For one thing, is a lot of times people who are running for future LNC seats attend LNC meetings in order to gain the experience, and then they campaign on the fact that I have been at every LNC meeting for the past 2 years. Well, how can they prove that if their attendance is not noted? And other people who read the minutes, who are deciding who would be a good candidate for this, or who has been really faithful in this, and they see the same names always in the gallery of LNC meetings. That is a badge of honor for those members, and they deserve to be recognized. And there is no way in the world that that is a liability to the LNC. Again, that's just a fundamental difference in priority. Do we go above and beyond to recognize members and make the minutes easy for members, or do we do it for the convenience of the LNC? And I think you know what my answer is. And to say you could just refer to the YouTube video, I think is super, super lazy. Plus, the YouTube video is about 10 hours long when you count both days. People come and go in these meetings. So are you really trying to tell me that if I wanted to know what non-LNC members attended this meeting, that I'm expected to sit and watch 10 hours of video and try to look on the periphery to see who's coming in and out of the room? Is that seriously what you're suggesting? So that is just crazy pants to me. And, as JJ says, it is fairly standard in public bodies to list attendees. Agreed, and if somebody doesn't wanna be listed, they don't sign the attendance sheet, and that's fine as well. I just what really rubbed me, the wrong way was why did he even have to mention that? He could just not done it. He could have just asked the question and said, "Was there a roster?" Okay. And if he had really looked at my past minutes, he would see that there were times I hadn't been able to list who was there because there was one set of minutes where I'd said I forgot to circulate the attendance list. And I just noted that there were multiple members of the public in addition in the gallery. But to go out of your way to point it out and then say, "I am not gonna do this because this isn't required," is a shot at me. And when you take a seat in such questionable circumstances, that's passive aggressive catty bullshit. It was really unnecessary. You know, I have no intention upon doing videos criticizing what you're doing. But you come after me, I'm gonna clap back because the way I did it was right, and the way I did it when it came to these attendees, I'm not right on everything. I just admitted I might be wrong on the policy manual. Um, but I even lost what I was gonna say, but I am right when it comes to prioritizing members and making the minutes accessible, understandable, and useful to the members. And I make 0 apologies for that, and that's why I put in the QR codes too. I wonder if he's gonna do that, because to just go and say, "Well, I'm gonna put in the minimum, and you peasants can go watch the YouTube video if you want more information." Are you gonna give them the QR code so they know exactly where to go in the YouTube videos like I did? Or are you gonna say that's not necessary? You can't have it both ways, dude, unless you're expecting members to actually sit through 10 hours of video, and that's just not reasonable. So perhaps next time, don't take a shot at me because not only did you steal my seat, because I was elected by the delegates, you were not. Maybe you will be in Reno. Best of luck to you. But to then turn around and take a shot at me is not only insulting to me, it's insulting to the delegates that elected me. And you are better than that. Don't be like that. Now, maybe you didn't intend it to come across that way. I could just be super sensitive. I admit that fully upfront. But you should be politically savvy enough to know that that's easily how it could be taken. And Stephen had some excellent points that I also was going to, bring off. And Gamer Jame, I don't know what you're talking about. We're all volunteers, we don't get paid. Um, yeah, there's no reason not to list guests. Ryan is correct. But Steven said, if he thinks YouTube video is sufficient for showing who's there, does not imply liability has already been created. Exactly. If you're worried about liability, because I think even Roberts mentions this, I could be incorrect. You don't save recordings of the meetings. You destroy the recordings after the minutes have been created. So don't give me that liability crap. If we're preserving the YouTube videos for anyone in the world to see, the liability has already been created. It's a balancing act to have the minutes be what they're supposed to be, because you're not a court reporter, you're not a stenographer, and to also keep them useful to members. I have pared down a lot. I used to include a lot more. Oh, I thought it did say that, JJ. There was somewhere I thought it said that. It might be in our policy man. Where was it? But thank you for that correction. But the fact remains, if there's a recording of the minute meeting, the liability is still there. I don't know what the liability is for, what, Mike? Um, but that was his claim, that it creates liability. I I don't get it, but if we are publishing videos of our meetings, and you're already saying they could get this information from the videos, then what's the harm? Then what's the harm? Again, it's a balancing act because you can include too much in the minutes. I think when I first started in 2018, I included too much, in the minutes. Conceded. I got over that, I think, after the first year. I learned because that was the first time I'd ever been secretary of anything. Um, so in the beginning, I'd say 2018 up through maybe mid 2019, I probably included too much. I think we got to a good balance towards the end there because I don't think Alicia included enough, though she did very strictly follow Roberts. And no shade on Alicia. Alicia is still one of the best secretaries I say that every single time that I'd ever had the pleasure to work with. Okay, let's take a look through comments here. Yeah, Mike, I think you're right. It was our policy manual that said to destroy the recording. I think we deleted that, though, out of the policy manual about 5 meetings ago or 4 meetings ago, but I think you're correct. It wasn't, especially since JJ says it's not in Roberts. It had to be the policy manual that I was thinking of. Um, and let's see here. And H. Reardon said a person could be at a meeting for 5 minutes and their claim at the meeting. Well, that is true. And there's nothing you can do against dishonest actors to foolproof things. But generally, if someone is paid the money to fly from out of town to go to the LNC meeting, I think they're going to attend it. They're not going to spend that kind of money and effort. They're running for a position to go and just be in the room for 5 minutes. Of course, they could do that. Yes. But I don't see that as a realistic issue. And to be honest with you, I would probably note that as a footnote if I saw somebody doing that, and I took attendance each day, and you could see who was there for both days. So, I just really did not appreciate that comment. Um, that just was completely unnecessary. I thought you were gonna be the most boring secretary, and now you're, like, starting crap. You're throwing shade on someone who's not on the list to defend themselves. That's not right, dude, and I will stand by my practice, and I do it, I try to do it in Colorado, but I have to be honest, I've forgotten to bring attendance sheets because 'cause I'm coming right after work and it just gets crazy, but I need to get better at that in Colorado. But I will stand by my practice always of prioritizing members and making sure their name is recorded. And, I know when we used to do telephone executive committee meetings, Alicia would note the names of the attendees in there as well. She didn't note it for the in-person meetings, but I don't fault her for that. I don't fault her for not going above and beyond, but I do fault somebody for criticizing somebody for going above and beyond. That's just not right. So, dude, please try to stop throwing shade at me and I'll return the favor and not be nitpicking every single thing you do. Because if you think you're going to be perfect in the next 6 months and that I couldn't ride your ass, you've got another thing coming. But I had resolved that I was not going to do that. And I wasn't even going to mention anything about your performance until you decided that you were going to throw some shade at me. So can we not do that, please? That would be great if we could. All right, everyone. I got to go to the 50th anniversary, so that was it. I figured I would just get that out of the way. I didn't want to do interrupt any other show with that. I'll let you know how things go. And now, though, I'm gonna need to research that policy manual thing because I could have sworn there was more there. Interesting, interesting. I will, and if it's not, if my memory is incorrect, that's a policy manual change that needs to be made. Okay, I'm just giving it a few more minutes for comments if there are any, and, I think that is it. I'm just gonna chat here for a few minutes. So next weekend, I'm taking the Legacy RP exam. I don't know if I told you that, JJ. And JJ, I've gotta get with you, about the dates I'm going to be in not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, because I wanna meet you if at all possible, but also there's a relative, um, that I, uh I want to meet because as you guys know, I don't know who my biological father was, so I did the 23andMe and I found a first cousin on that side who also lives in Pennsylvania. So I am flying in Thursday, though I may change that to Wednesday because Southwest already changed my frickin' flight, and I wanna have enough time to visit. So, we'll have to get together. We'll have to get together on that. So on the 18th, I am taking the Legacy RP exam because I'm not waiting 5 years to get through this new one. Hopefully, I can pass at least 2 sections so I can continue, but I've been doing that practice test, because Mike and I started that, and woof, man, the way they word those questions sometimes. What date? Mar the 1st weekend in March. So I think so it's like the 2nd and 3rd is when or 3rd is when I'm flying in, and the convention for Pennsylvania is the 1st weekend in March, and I'm driving out of Pennsylvania on Saturday night to go to North Carolina to be at their convention in Greensboro for Sunday. Fun. And then I'm flying home from Greensboro. All right, everyone. I got to get going because we are running a bit late to get to this thing. I thank you so much. And I hope in the future that the LNC list will not be taking shots at people who aren't there to defend themselves because that is really, really classless. All right, everyone. Have a good night.